you.
Good evening, you're live with Faye, that's the name of the show. Thank you for joining us. We're here every evening at 8 o'clock to talk about things that are of national importance. We've talked about the rape cases coming out of Uttar Pradesh. We've talked about the economy. We've talked about petrol prices. And with a very heavy heart, I have to bring you this conversation today about the state of affairs in the Indian media. Now, over the last several weeks, I know that several people across the country have watched with their jaws hanging slightly open to the extent to which the Indian media has gone to chase after the Sushant Singh Rajput case. And there are several questions we must ask, but there are questions we must ask technically at this point. As a journalist myself, I've struggled with what's going on with the media. I've struggled with the fact that I'm also a journalist, and this is now the fraternity that I'm now part of. Quite frankly, I've never been more grateful and more convinced about my decision to leave television media last year, given where it is at this point. But there are questions we have to ask about where we are today. You know, there was a point when I joined this profession, when you told someone you were a journalist, you would be met with admiration for the work that was being done. Now, when you tell someone you're a journalist, they're irked a little bit by what you do. And you have to quickly qualify, oh, I'm not that kind of journalist, because that kind of journalist has become a thing. But setting aside our emotions, I want to ask, like I said, technical questions today about the coverage on the Sushant Singh Rajput case, about the various things that have happened, the WhatsApp text messages that have been released to the media, one can assume only from the agencies that are investigating the case because nobody else would have access to them. Details of mental health treatment that the media has made public and whether there is an ethical line there. What the law says about coverage of cases like this, how it impedes, if at all, the investigation that is being conducted, and what the ethical constraints are. Now, we must remember for journalists, it's about ethics. Because when you want a free media and you want free journalists to write about whatever they need to write about, there aren't too many laws that stand in the way of that freedom, because it's imperative to the health of the democracy that that freedom be strong, which is why journalists are bound by ethics. But where are the ethics here? And what do the ethics say? And how far have we left the ethics behind in where we are right now? That's the conversation we're having. And of course, I encourage our viewers to use the super chat feature to ask your questions, because I assume there will be a lot of questions about this matter. Joining me on the show, through the course of the conversation, we have Dr. Harish Shetty, who's a psychiatrist, and someone I respect greatly join us. We have Sanjay Hegde, as a senior lawyer with the Supreme Court, who will bring in the legal point of view, the investigation, and where the law and the questions of rules stand as far as journalism is concerned. Manisha Pande is a journalist with News Laundry, with a very famous show called News Sense. And unfortunately for Manisha, her job involves watching television news day in and day out, and I'm sure this is taking a toll on her as well. We also have Kubra Sait, who joins us, a young actress, who brings in the point of view of A, someone who's looking at what's going on, and B, someone from the film industry. And I've been told in conversations that very young people, children of film actors, young industry members are receiving death threats and rape threats and very crude messages as well as a fallout of this case. And Daniel Fernandes, who is a comedian and a social commentator, joins us as well. Good evening. I welcome all of you to this conversation and our audience. If I may please start with Mr. Sanjay Hegde. Mr. Sanjay Hegde, I want to start with the law. And like I said, there aren't too many laws that bind, unfortunately, what journalists do. But in terms of what is kosher and acceptable when there is an investigation on, what are the lines right now that are being crossed?
There are several lines being crossed. In fact, it's almost as if the journalistic output on the Noida noisemakers is driving the investigation itself. Things are being pitched first to the media. Complaints are being taken to the media first, and then you then assault everyone, including the investigating officers, saying this investigating officer didn't ask this because probably he was under the influence of X government or Y government, or this investigating officer did this precisely because he had to save this member of this political family. So many motives being attributed, as a consequence of which it does impact the investigation itself, because even a fair-minded investigator who otherwise had the luxury of letting the facts play out and then drawing conclusions wants to now cover every possible track and every possible angle just so that somebody else can't accuse him of having done a shoddy job. So now you have neighbors suddenly popping up saying that, I saw that the lights which normally went off at 4 a.m. in the morning went off at 10 o'clock on the previous day. Now, with due respect to neighbors, you have no business peeking into somebody's house at 4 a.m. in the morning to figure out when the lights go on and off. And even if you have suspicions, please go to the investigating officer, not to the press for your 2 minutes of airtime. Then we had this huge thing with some delivery boy delivering hummus. This is not journalism. And one more thing.
Yes.
Journalists think that they have a right to be answered. No. You have no right apart from that which a common citizen has. On the contrary, somebody who is in a possible legal situation has what is called the constitutional right of silence. He or she can remain silent to anybody in the world, including the investigating officer, including the court, put his or her hands on his hips and say, now you come and prove your case. I am going to remain silent. That is the valuable constitutional right. And that's why lawyers often tend to tell the people who might be in a crisis with the law, just shut up. Don't say anything.
Mr. Hegde, yes. I want to ask you a follow-up question, and we've seen this happen in previous instances, and I want to compare two completely different cases. The Unnao case, with regards to MLA Kuldeep Singh Sengar, where there was widespread media demand of an arrest, and then the police followed up and arrested, because up till then the victim had been called a liar, her father had been killed in custody, and no arrest had been made. How is that different from this legally, in your opinion?
Somebody rightly said that the function of journalism is often to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Quite often, in cases which have celebrities and bring in TRPs, then the reverse happens. You afflict those who are already afflicted. On a side note, there was a conversation at the India International Center by a retired bureaucrat. Actually, this gentleman, the BJP spokesperson, Kohli's father, who said about one of the anchors, उसको रोज एक नया मुर्गा चाहिए, और जिस दिन बकरा मिल गया ना, तो पूरा हफ्ता चला देगा. And now we don't even have a bakra. We seem to have a whole elephant, and everybody is going on bits and pieces and drawing their own conclusions, like the 9 blind men of Hindustan. You remember that rhyme? So somebody caught hold of a ear and said, oh, this looks like a fan. Somebody caught the tail and said it was a snake. For heaven's sake, let a fair investigation just play out. If people have doubts about the previous investigation, which I think are unwarranted, be that as it may, there is a double check going on. Let it play out.
Let it play out. Right, we have Dr. Harish Shetty who's joined us as well. Dr. Shetty, there were questions quite rightly that were raised about the details of mental health treatment that have been released to the press and through the press to the public through the course of this investigation. There are laws and there are rules that bind mental health treatment as well. What rules, in your opinion, have been broken?
I think before that, Faye, what I would like to say is across time, A lot of journalists, both in print as well as on the channels, have not followed the WHO guidelines of reporting mental health issues. My question is, if your close relative was mental ill or he was allegedly mental ill, would you report in that manner? That's my question to all of them. Number two is nobody, either Faye, neither you, me, or Sanjay, or Kubra, or Ira here, or Daniel, has any right to talk about any details about mental health and mental illness of anybody on this earth. And the third most important point is, I don't know, the philosophy of journalism has changed. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but the philosophy has changed. I'm from the old school. And a lot of mental health myths have somehow infiltrated into this entire debate across time. And those myths, I'm not talking about the sad demise of the act. I'm talking about generally about people who are depressed and who are at home. When the families listen to all this, there's a lot of trouble for those who are taking treatment at home. When those ill who hear all this, they are distressed beyond a point. And I'll tell you, years ago, Faye, there was a very famous model who harmed herself and died of self-harm. And so much was written on the print that a lot of others also ended their life in the next 1 month or 2 months. So our responsibility is to all those who are taking treatment and the disturbances they have. When somebody says that if you are on the top, you can't be depressed, and if you're depressed, you can't be on the top. If you see happy videos, you're not depressed. I am so sad, so hurt, so pained at this. I would just ask every journalist to reflect and say, if it is one of their own kith and kin, what would you do? And everybody should follow the WHO guidelines. The Mental Health Care Act has been violated repeatedly by a print journalist who named the illnesses probably the person had or allegedly had. We do not know. And so it's all unfortunately economic driven media, and so the Mental Health Care Act is violated. The Medical Council MCI acts are violated, and the law of the land is violated. Mental Health Care Act is very strong. Nobody can reveal any details about the illness of a person.
Even to the police, Doc?
Police, they will reveal as much as is essential. So there are certain clauses. In certain clauses, you can reveal. Say, for example, if the person is under treatment of Daniel and he wants to go to Faye, so Daniel has a right to release the information to Faye so that the treatment is helped. Or if somebody comes to Daniel and says that I would want to self-harm now and I would want to hurt somebody, Daniel has every right to go and release in the best interest of the patient. So all these laws are violated. But the stigma for those who are at home and who are taking treatment is the pain is something nobody can imagine.
Manisha, we lost you for a second. I'm glad you're back. I want to read out some messages to you. Sai Krishna says, if channels didn't have the compulsion to provide 24/7 eyeball grabbing programming, they would be more professional. 24/7 model needs to be questioned. I agree, that is true. Ritin Avasti says, with all the leaked WhatsApp and other leads that are contaminating the sanctity of the data of investigation, allow a lawyer to have said evidence thrown out of court. Is that possible? And Priyansh Kumar Jha says, Manisha's, the bio is more relevant than ever right now. So Manisha, you've unfortunately, my sympathies, have had to watch television news for the last 1 week, and it's part of your job. Yeah. I want to talk to you about the ethics of journalism, because we talked to the two gentlemen, Mr. Hegde and Dr. Shetty, about the rules of mental health and the law, but the ethics of journalism that are meant to bind journalists. How far are we right now from those ethics?
Wow. Faye, I've been a journalist for about 11 years, and with about 5 years, I worked with News Laundry. And at News Laundry, we cover the media. So we've looked at the Arushi case, we've looked at the Sunanda Pushkar case, how that was covered. More recently, we looked at the Sridevi case, where journalists jumped into bathtubs and gave their P2C. But I've honestly, in the past 5 years, never seen something as rotten as what we're seeing play out over the past 1 month. I'm shocked and amazed at the sort of depths to which we've plummeted. And like Sait talked about 24/7 media, I don't think that's an excuse here, because even out of those 24 hours, there is no channel. If you look at the top 4 channels, they are not dedicating even an hour to coronavirus. Incidentally, we recorded 70,000 cases yesterday and 1,000 deaths. There's no discussion on the exams. There's no discussion on the floods. So even in 24/7 model, you're running 24/7. You're just running this news of Rhea Chakravarti and SSR case. So I'm not really sure if that's solely to be blamed. Just to give you an example on how far we've gone, I just want to, for your audience, illustrate one case which has really gone viral, and which is, everyone's sort of talking about it in the country, and it's become a truth almost, which was started by news channels. The conspiracy of Disha Salia's murder case. Now, there's this conspiracy that she was murdered, and the guys who murdered her also murdered Sushant. How did this conspiracy originate? There's this guy who's running a page called Insaf SSR. He writes a long Facebook post, talking about how he knows that she was murdered, and he describes the murder. He knows who were at the party. He says that before being thrown off the building, she called up Sushant and told him that she was going to get murdered, and then, and then those same people killed him with a dog belt. So this is a conspiracy theory on a Facebook post. Before this Facebook, before he writes this down, there's a disclaimer in the post saying that this could be fictional or factual. Here's a guy who said it up front. This could be fictional or factual. This guy is invited onto TV News Studios. He's been on supposedly India's #1 channel, Republic TV, where he's given free airtime to voice this conspiracy theory out. And the anchor allows him to say this without any questions on who told you, how do you know. The guy's not even in Bombay, by the way, the best part. There are no questions asked. So you pluck a conspiracy theory from from Facebook, from social media, you give it, legitimacy on a news channel. You don't conduct any due diligence of asking who this guy is, what are his sources, basic 101 journalism, That's not done. You repeat this over 3 days, and now suddenly the entire nation believes that there's a murder angle to this. That's the level of journalism that we've seen in this case. And right from the beginning, right from the moment when this case hit headlines, you've had journalists, break every norm, whether it's replaying the suicide, printing the, publishing the pictures, right? And Dr. Shetty talked about a very important point of copycat suicides. There are norms of, where the media is not supposed to be in detail explaining what happened so as to to trigger other people. So you've had people barge into his house in Patna, shoving the mic into his father's face, asking him to respond. And over the past 2 weeks, when the case moved on to CBI, and we hoped that the investigation would now be carried on by CBI and not by kangaroo courts in TV studios, it's gotten worse. You've seen a vicious witch hunt of Rhea Chakravarti. There are allegations against her, sure. Those allegations have to be investigated. But you have today channels running hashtags like arrest Rhea now. On the basis of what? I mean, you haven't had a single CBI officer or police officer. There's not even a charge sheet in this case.
Yeah.
And you're running hashtags like arrest Rhea. You're leaking out personal chats. You're misrepresenting those chats. One of the chats which apparently talked about, an oil, giving someone 2 to 3, 4 drops of oil, turned out it was CBD oil, which is in India prescribed by Ayurveda doctors. You take those chats and you're painting her out to be this Pablo Escobar meets Charles Sobraj meets Mata Hari and I don't know what else. And it's a complete character assassination. And on top of that, it was disturbing to see yesterday how anchors outside her home were badgering a poor delivery boy who'd come to deliver food, asking him questions, heckling him, heckling the guard, heckling people in the complex where she's living. It's honestly come to a point where, I mean, we can't even ethics. This is not even a question of ethics anymore. It's the worst.
I just want to bring in Sanjay Hegde, if I may. Bharat Raval's asking a question, saying, doing a witch hunt against a person, accusing someone of practicing black magic because of a stereotype, won't this amount to a lawsuit against such media? Sanjay Hegde, the leaking of private WhatsApp chats between Rhea Chakravarti and other people, like, between her sister and her friends and Mahesh Bhatt and all of these things. Is there a legal, is there any sort of legal binding to this at all? Or is the media allowed to do whatever they want to? Because obviously, again, like I say, these chats must have come from the investigating agencies.
Obviously, they came from the investigating agencies. And obviously, there has been a breach of privacy. There is on the books, in the law, provisions where you can claim compensation. But everybody knows how long a lawsuit takes in India. What is it that disciplines the press abroad? It is the fear of huge payouts that they may have to make in case they get it wrong. They were in London, Peter Carter Ruck could ruin a newspaper or two before breakfast if he decided to file a defamation suit, if he was the lawyer in a defamation case. Unfortunately, in India, we've got this mixed up of criminal defamation. You try to send somebody to jail, and then you have civil defamation where you spend a lifetime trying to prove damages and to enforce it. So the only other alternative to somebody like Rhea Chakravarti right now, the position that she is in, is something that the Supreme Court carved out after another horrific case. That was the Uma Khurana case. No, Uma Khurana was a school teacher in a small school in Old Delhi. One of the reporters in Noida, who now heads one of the big channels out there, ran a story that she was running a prostitution racket in a girls' school. Old Delhi, the public came on at the school and almost burnt down the school. The lady had barely escaped with her life. She then took them to court. She got a settlement, and that matter reached a quietus. Here is a case where, when things blow over, if Rhea and her people were so inclined, they probably could sue people's pants off, at least to the extent that they would have to make these declarations in various statutory compliances that there is a possible claim that we may have to pay. Secondly, if you are in the position where you may be an accused, you can go to a court and say, please have a temporary restraining order against the media and specific media houses against discussing the matter. I saw on one of your visuals that you have mentioned the Bombay case. The Bombay case is filed as a public interest litigation by somebody else. But if Rhea or her family herself were to move the courts, I'm sure that they could get a temporary restraining order, what is popularly called a gag order.
Well, let me just bring in Kubra Sait at this point, and there's another message from Tanvi D I want to read here. She says, we had a chance here to amplify conversation about mental health. We've lost that opportunity. Now the Justice Army is influenced by Kangana Ranaut, who dismissed mental health, calling it a business. And this is true. There was an opportunity here to have a larger conversation about mental health that has been squandered, Kubra. As a member of the entertainment industry and as a regular citizen, do you believe now we're too far gone?
I hope we're not too far gone. I mean, I'm the optimist, and the voice inside me says, I hope we can find a way to come back, because yes, we're far in too deep, but I hope we're not far gone, I mean, this whole bizarre circus that's going around, it almost feels like a treasure hunt. It doesn't seem like an investigation anymore. More importantly, I have experienced mental health and the kind of ramifications it can have on every member of the family very closely. I mean, just before we went live, I was having a chat with Sanjay sir, and everybody, on this chat is aware of what a fun guy and what an incredible talent, what a comedian my brother is. And the same brother called me one day, standing here in my house, the house that I'm speaking, from right now, called me to say that you know what? I didn't know whom to call, and I can only think of one thing, and that is jumping off this window. Imagine what happens to family when you are able to, when you listen to something like that. It shatters you because you don't know what you've done right or wrong up until now, and you don't know how to rectify it and how to bring this person back. And you always, feel, is it too late? Is it beyond your control? And I've been so grateful that my brother, doing what he does, also speaks very openly about his mental health issues. It hurts me. And as Dr. Harish Shetty said, it pains me to see that someone who's a part of this industry, who's come from the outside, quote unquote outside, who's received her due, who will never be challenged on her acting prowess, is turning around to belittle people, to say that this is a facade to hide behind, and there is nothing like a mental disorder that can actually happen. What I think most people forget is that as actors, as people who are a part of the entertainment business, we don't have an off day. We are always switched on. And whether it is for our own good because we need to run our homes and run our families, or whether it is because it's a simple contract that we are serving. If I'm supposed to be on stage and entertain 10,000 people, or be on a set where I need to deliver a comedy scene. I remember it was very, very early on in my life. I was shooting my first film. It was ready, and we were all on the set. And all of a sudden there was like this, shh, don't. And it was because Mr. Paresh Rawal had lost his mother. And he wrapped that day's work with a comedy scene. And then he went back home. We don't have off days. It is eventually going to sum up. Eventually it's going to pile on us. Eventually it's going to come out in different ways. We haven't even begun accepting it as a normal, as it's okay. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to not be okay. And then we have, this circus of our media, literally, creating guesswork and thinking who's going to reach the finish line first. What sort of a game is this? And why are we playing with people who are alive and with no respect to someone who's dead? It just fails me. It beats me. And it just is so hurting. Because it's not the way it's to be done. It's not the way. It's definitely not a way out. It just hurts me. I mean, and the worst thing is, if you say anything about it, you are automatically assumed to be taking sides of someone. As Manisha said, no. If there are allegations, those allegations need to be reviewed, need to be followed through. There are agencies to do that.
Yeah.
But while those agencies are following the process, we cannot slander someone. What if this turns out to be something horrific for a person who's alive?
I want to give an example, and Manisha brought this up as well. When we had heard a couple of years ago that the actress Sridevi had passed away in Dubai, and I remember this very clearly because I was running a channel at that time. And all of these other channels had these disgusting graphics of how tall she was and how wide a bathtub normally is and how this could have happened. And there was suggestions and accusations that she'd been murdered.
Yeah,
and I remember making phone calls, asking a local journalist in Dubai to make visits to various places to find out if there was any evidence at all. And there was no evidence whatsoever. And there was no story to run. And I remember someone on my team turned around and said, what if it turns out tomorrow she is murdered? Won't you be embarrassed? And I said, we will report it then. If it turns out. It is not our job to speculate now. It is our job to report it then. And
I am asked to apologize on my tweets. I'm asked to apologize if Rhea is proven guilty. Why are you hell-bent on proving someone guilty just based on stories that are flying around?
The lack of accountability, Kubra, comes from the fact that not a single one of those news channels apologized. It has been 2 years. There's been no evidence since then of any wrongdoing in Sridevi's death.
In fact, I remember at that time, there were a bunch of insinuations made by anchors where they were like, why did the husband leave her alone? Or were they not talking? There were these, there was these insinuations being made that this could have been something more than an accident. And of course, it couldn't fly beyond a day, but there was an effort made for sure.
No, but my point is that there was no apology issued at all, because there's impunity right now for journalists to do whatever they want for one night's TRPs. Yeah. And then the next day, everybody pretends like nothing happened. They just go on to the next story. So they're actually doing this just to gain that one night's TRPs. Daniel, where does that leave regular citizens? Where does that leave people who have no other source of information other than these news channels?
Oh, they should follow Faye D'Souza now. I think that's the only legit source of information. So honestly, as a citizen, I stopped watching TV news years ago. I gave up. I mean, once you understand the whole TRP game, once you understand the political angle, especially in this particular case, it's hard to, as a commentator, not bring in the fact that this is all happening in a non-BJP state. So BR elections and all of that stuff. So the media has been bought. And unless you're living under a rock, everybody knows the media has been bought. It's being used as a lapdog for various agendas, and this is just one such agenda. That's what it is. I think we, as a citizen, I mean, I do understand that a lot of people stressed out because of the lockdown and whatever. So maybe this is an outlet, maybe because everybody wants to blow off some steam, but I think people have completely lost their minds. There's no sense of judgment. There's no sense of holding back and saying, okay, hang on, you wanted CBI is here, but you're not stopping. Everybody's gone rabid. So as a citizen, personally, I have to tune out. I mean, I read headlines at best, and that's it. I just can't watch the news anymore. I mean, I saw a clip yesterday of, I think, Times Now, where there was this lady and that wannabe Arnab, Rahul something, and
Arnab Light.
Arnab Light, and they're talking about some WhatsApp chat where Rhea Chakrabarti is discussing some weed from Bhubaneswar, and it's like, this is the best weed, and I'm like, how is this news? Anybody knows the best weed comes from Shillong and Amsterdam. So how? I mean, and the seriousness with which they are doing this. I saw another clip today where there's this other chap talking about a chat where Rhea said, I'm a bounce, which is slang, which is young people slang for I'm getting out of here, I'm leaving. And he's trying to connect that to a check bouncing. So it's not the fact that Indian journalism, television journalism right now lacks class, it lacks IQ. For you to not even do basic fact check, just ask your intern, the guy who you forced to do photocopies and get you coffee all day, he would have told you that I'm a bounce means I'm leaving. It has nothing to do with banking. So,
technically that comes back to what Manisha was saying about the fact that there's no fact checking.
There is
Everybody
nothing.
is flying by the seat of their pants at this point.
And I'll tell you what's happening is the news media is playing to the IQ of the audience. They know the audience is stupid. They know the audience loves gossip. They know the audience, which is why the same thing happened with Sridevi as well. They are playing. That's what news journalism is today. They meet you where you are and then pound you down even more and make you even more stupid than you were 5 months.
Yes.
So, I just wanted to add one thing, just on the audience bit. I disagree. I don't think the audience is that dumb. And Faye, you would have that experience also. There are countless students writing to us saying that, ma'am, please talk about JEE, NET. No news channel is picking up our issues. So it is not as if the audience wants this. This is a cynical assumption made on part of news channels because it's convenient. It's lazy for them to say, hey, we don't want to do this. The audience is dumb, so we're just giving them what they want. The audience does demand good content. The audience does want their issues to be played up by journalists, and we have proof in that in the number of people who reach out to us telling us, cover floods, cover the pandemic, cover our, exam postponement protests.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that the ticker has been completely removed from all the news media channels. I mean, I'm entirely on Daniel's side because I've stopped watching news. I don't even have that desktop or whatever whatever thing that you have for TV to play. Box. Yeah, that guy. Box, yeah, I don't have it anymore.
Imagine.
Whatever, I don't have that thing anymore. And I believe there is not even a ticker on COVID. And isn't that what the world is dealing with right now?
I mean, let me just put that into perspective, Kubra. Yesterday, India reported the highest number of COVID cases reported by any country in a day since
We're
the
above
outbreak
Brazil
started across the
right
world.
now.
But somehow nobody is interested. And the distinction I want to make before I take a question to Sanjay Hegde is this. Journalism is not to tell you what you find exciting. That's not the job. The job is to tell you what you need to know. It has to prioritize and tell you what is important and what you need to know. It is the job of general entertainment to find out what you find exciting and make shows based on what you find exciting. That line has completely been blurred. Sanjay Hegde, Anonymous India, has written a question that I'm going to read out, but although I don't fully understand it. He says, Sanjay ji, as students, we were made aware of the importance and how we have to all study all through our life to choose medicine or law. Can you give us a reason as to why judges of courts appeared unjust and biased? Can one say that they aren't well read, or is there a corruption angle that appears?
This is material for a whole different program.
Yes.
So as far as medicine is concerned, I'm just riffing off the question. Because if other people have spoken about mental health, and I have experience of people in proximity, how this kind of circus affects elderly people also, and people begin to identify with various characters. Television loses its hold on reality, and in turn, people who have nothing much to do except switching on television and riffing through channels and saying, oh, okay, what is it that catches my eye? Some familiar face, some familiar story. They get involved. And I was recently told about an incident in my circle where an elderly lady has actually gone into depression because of all this. And this was the trigger. Now, I just extrapolating, I'm sure that all over India, there have been several cases where people may not have committed suicide, but where there are underlying factors, where there is this lockdown, this kind of non-stop, breathless, prurient coverage is acting as a trigger to push many people down under.
Dr. Shetty, do you agree? And I also want to point out that listening to people yell at each other right before you go to bed is not good for you. It's not good for the journalists. It's not good for the panelists. It's not good for the team that works on these shows.
Your dogs, all of them. Yeah.
Your cats, your dogs, the bird that's asleep on your windowsill. Dr. Shetty, the mental health implication of this sort of toxic national coverage.
I think I shared that, Faye, that the philosophy of journalism has changed, and KRPs rise when there's a rise in decibels. But I'm still concerned about one thing. 1 out of 7 Indians are mentally ill. I'm not saying this, ICMR said this, study across, which means 1 in our extended family. Each one of our families. Kubra was very honest. I had a first cousin who ended his life. I had an uncle who had mental illness. So, are we concerned about our own members of our families when we do this? It's something which every neighbor, as Sanjay said, neighbor living in the apartment below, down, here, there, journalist. I think the time has come to be compassionate to our own brothers and sisters, to our own parents, to our own uncles who are mentally ill, and you would not know that they're mental. They will not tell you. Do you know the damage you do to all these people?
I was having a chat with my mother this afternoon.
Yes.
And she said, I have been struggling with mental health, and I don't think anybody would understand. There is a stigma. Nobody talks about it. You've not made it comfortable to speak about. It's considered to be a taboo. Anything to do with mental health has been equated to mental asylum. What is wrong?
And the stigma gets worse when we create such sort of an environment around news channels, print media, online media, etc., you are hurting your own family.
I'm sorry, but if I may add, talking about hurting our environment, I mean,
Your own loved ones.
This whole situation, has also led to other hashtags like boycott Bollywood, these gangs, Bollywood mafia. Who came up with all these ideas?
But I would like to say something here, Kubra.
Yeah.
The angst in the country is so big.
Yeah.
Globalization, rapid pace, rapid change, COVID. So primitive emotions get a lot of buoyance and support.
Right. But I am trying to think, what kind of harm are you causing to this industry? Forget about actors. All right. Let the actors just take a back seat for half a second. The number of technicians who are here from different parts of the country who rely on this industry for their daily bread, for the education of their children, who don't have anything else to do, don't know anything else to do except fix a light. What do you mean by boycott Bollywood? What do you understand that you want to end an industry because you've been fed the wrong information, because you have nothing else to do, and everyone is reacting primarily based on pressure of sounding right?
When you are in angst, the extreme emotions of violence, revenge is really generated. And what is very important, I would like to remind you, are not hurting the world, you're hurting your own self. You're hurting your own loved ones. That is the point.
I just want to add.
I want to bring in Manisha. Manisha, go ahead. The whole prioritizing of news and the way it's being put out right now, and reaction to what Kubra said.
Yeah, well, I just want to add, we shouldn't make the mistake of assuming that what we're seeing on television and on social media and hashtag campaigns is what the nation really thinks. Because it's very organized at this point. The trolling is very organized. If you look at the handles that are using these hashtags, many of them have just cropped up over the past 1 month. Many of them are bots or anonymous guys. So there is something organized happening here. The moment you tweet about Sushant or any or even the case, you use one of those hashtags, you get trolled in a way that is very organized. I would not mistake it for a genuine sentiment in the nation. I don't think an average Indian wants to end Bollywood or boycott Bollywood. I'm sure this case has made everyone feel a lot of things. I think people have had emotional reactions to the whole case and has strong opinions on it. But the hashtag campaigns and the media campaigns that you're seeing, it's very much a very organized propaganda that's being fed to you every day and from multiple sources. So I don't think we should conflate the two. On the priority bit, I think there's one thing that I want to tell your viewers and people who are watching this, that this is just what these anchors are doing is essentially a giant middle finger to you and all your concerns in life and all the very real issues that you're feeling. Honestly, this is them telling you that you can go through whatever shit you're going through. We don't care.
Yeah.
And 25 lakh students, their futures, in a place where they're worried. They're worried about the exams that are supposed to be taking place on September 15 amid a pandemic. I think most of these anchors have held 0 debates on it or 1 debate on it. So this is them telling you that, your problems don't matter to us, and which is a huge thing to say because journalism is a public service essentially.
Yes.
What do you do in turn? You have to respond by switching these guys off. Honestly, if you want to catch all the
Manisha,
just one line to add there.
Yes, Mr. Hegde, go ahead.
Switch off from push television, where content is pushed at you.
Yeah.
Go to pull television like this program, where you pull down content which appeals to you and which is relevant to you. That's where a lot of good journalism is going.
And it's not that all TV anchors are bad or all reporters on television are bad. Make a note of the guys who are, talking about your issues. So, you can no longer be a passive consumer. Start engaging with your media. Demand questions of them. Demand accountability.
People who are complaining
Say no to the pushers. Say no to the pushers.
say no to the pushers. People who are complaining that, oh, why is media like this? You have to, the only person who can stop the guys in media is you. You have to stop watching them. Punish them by withdrawing your attention. Remember that your attention is a commodity that is being packaged and sold to the advertiser on television news. You are not the customer. The advertiser is the customer. And the advertiser invariably in a bad market is the government, because the government is the only one who has money to spend on advertising. So your attention span is being packaged and sold to the government. That is the advertiser. And that advertiser is paying top bucks. So obviously they're going to service the customer. In this case, the government, not you. I know Daniel has something to say. And just to add to Manisha's list of the things she said that they don't care about you. We have floods right now in Uttar Pradesh, in Bihar, in Kerala, in Assam, in Meghalaya, in Arunachal Pradesh. Not a peep about it on mainstream media. Over 60,000 people have died of COVID. 60,000. Someone's mother, someone's father, someone's brother, someone's sister, someone's child. Not enough noise about it. The JENET thing that Manisha brought up, obviously, these children study from the 9th standard to take these examinations, and the manner in which they're being treated right now is completely unconscionable. There's so much going on. Petrol is at 88 rupees in Mumbai. We're losing jobs. Millions,
5 million people in July.
5 million people have lost jobs in just the month of July. Salaried people. Our economy is in the dumps. The government has not even bothered to tell us anything about it. The RBI is telling us that the stock market is overheated and is going to crash one of these days. There's so much going on. We are perhaps in all of these metrics in the worst place we have been in recent history. And somehow we're all obsessed with this one case. Can you tell me why? It's because they're trying to distract you. Daniel?
Yeah, that's like the point I was trying to bring up earlier as well, that this is a massive distraction. They found, and as someone mentioned earlier, they found an elephant and they're parading that elephant up and down from all angles, putting cameras in places of the elephant that you shouldn't have to see, because everybody knows what an elephant looks like. And if you see an elephant once, you should go, yeah, that's an elephant. I've seen it. What is up next? But that's what they're doing. They're saying, hey, no, but have you seen the inside of the elephant's rectum? Let me take a camera in there. That's what they're doing to you. And I agree with what Manisha is saying, that there are a lot of young people out there who are saying that this is not what we want to watch. This is not the news we crave. We want a call to action to other issues that are important to us. Now, I have an observation that and I don't know how far up I can scale this, but I noticed this, that a lot of the TRPs that these channels claim that they have is driven by the elders of the family. Whenever I was at home as well, it was always my mom and dad. They were like machines at 9 o'clock. Republic TV would come on, and and I was just like, why is this happening? So I think if you want to, as a young person, if you're watching this and you want to change your behavior, this consumer behavior, speak to your parents. I think there's a massive disconnect because your parents are not as savvy on the internet, on YouTube, etc., etc. So, for example, I sent my parents a link to this show right now on the family WhatsApp group and told them to watch it. So I think while we are so busy fighting with strangers on the internet that we don't have 5 minutes to speak to our own family about these real issues. I think if you spend that time, whether it's about mental health, whether it's about what else is happening in the world, and if it requires you to take the remote control and switch the TV off, do it, because that's the level. Like I think Faye, you asked that question: have we come down too far down? Have we gone too far down? We have, and the only way to kind of get a change now is to take serious action. And you can't do it on Twitter. You will not change the world on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can change the world within your own space, your family, your friends. Start there.
I think also what happens is the older members of our family are more inclined to believe everything that news tells them. They're less suspicious about what's being told to them on news. A couple of questions that are coming in reaction to what Daniel just said. Shamita Dasgupta says, please comment on the role of some journalists being judge, jury, and declaring Rhea guilty before any investigation is complete. Linus Xavier says, are TRP ratings published by BARC reliable? If that's the case, what's the worst Godi? How is it that the worst of Godi media has the highest viewership? And there's another question that popped up that said, basically, can the panelists comment on Republic and Arnab Goswami and the way he's running his show? And I'll take this question to anyone who wants to comment. But
No,
Manisha,
I want to comment. I want to comment. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Basically, many of the anchors are suffering from a bad case of premature adjudication.
I'm going to give everybody a moment to settle with that joke, but Manisha, do you want to comment on that? The BARC
just on
ratings, the
yeah.
viewership,
So
and what that is, I believe.
BARC is currently the only organization that gives us some amount of understanding on what people are watching. But I personally don't go by BARC numbers because I think the sample size is very less. And we have reported on News Laundry how it can be easily tampered. So you can easily pay off homes and ask them to keep their TV on a certain channel, and you can get your ratings. And a lot of channels do that. This has been exposed about BARC. So I think it has a lot of limitations. I personally like to look at what's trending on YouTube, because I think that's a more open and transparent way
I
of
just want to add one more thing to what Manisha
There was like
said.
a recent Baksha case, just saying.
There is a valid this thing called landing pages where channels can pay BARC and the cable TV guys to make sure that when you switch on your TV, that's the channel that comes on.
Yeah.
And if you happen to watch for longer than a minute, it gets counted as viewership. Manisha, go ahead.
Also, what channels do sometimes is that they'll appear on two channels. So that's called double heading. So your TRP gets counted on two channels and you automatically double your viewership. So there's a lot of things that you can do to fudge your BARC numbers. I personally like to look at YouTube trending videos. And of course, people are watching a lot of Punjabi pop. But when it comes to news, the kind of stuff that trends on YouTube, when the Sushant Singh Rajput case and thing was happening, what actually was trending was an explainer. I forget, there was something very important happening at that time. Forget. It was something, the explainer on the new education policy. That is what was trending on YouTube. So not any of these debates on Sushant Singh Rajput, which means there is hunger among people because obviously it impacts students. So the students were on YouTube looking for an explainer on the new education policy. Ravish's shows often trend. Some of the Hindi shows often trend, but those shows, the news shows that trend on YouTube actually have news value. They're not, I mean, some of them can sometimes be, just about, some gimmick that happened on a debate show, but most of them do have news value. So I'm not cynical about when it comes to news consumers. I do think people want to watch good stuff. And I do think people want relevant information to their life. They expect that from news.
Actually, that's true. I mean, that's the reason why Manisha and I are still journalists on the internet, because we believe that there is an audience there that wants the proper fact-checked information, wants content that treats you with respect and treats your intelligence with respect. If we didn't believe that, we wouldn't be able to get up every morning and do this job. Aishwarya Valia says we need to have more discussions in regional languages of the country. A lot of people, she said, people buy house help, don't know about the economy, don't understand what's going on because they're watching mainstream media. And it's true, Hindi media is actually far more toxic than what goes on in English media. And that's even more dangerous.
I don't know. I mean, with what we've seen with past 1 month, English media has been as bad. They just speak in English, so it may seem a bit sophisticated, but it's as bad.
It's just as bad. It's just as bad. Dr. Shetty, I just want to pull that up on the fact that, again, this was an opportunity to speak to people in regional languages, in Hindi, about mental health. But obviously, the exact opposite has been done. And that is going to have, I mean, we have people across the country right now, like you said, who are upset because they've lost jobs, they've lost loved ones, they've suffered through the lockdown. This is actually only going to make things worse, isn't it?
Mental health avalanche is just on the way. I've said this way in your show, and we see a lot of people, especially where parents have passed away or close relatives have passed away. Kids are disturbed, adults are disturbed. There's anxiety, there's panic, there's a lot of issues, and the country and the states. I'm not with any political party. The country and the states both have not yet made a plan to address the mental health issues, because physical death is a different story. With mental illness, you die every day if it's untreated. Number two is 4 out of 10 women who end their lives by self-harm across the world are Indian women. Not my data, WHO data. 1 out of 5 people who end their lives in India are daily wage laborers. 1 out of 3 issues which are important, which makes people end their lives, are family problems. I mean, and 1 out of 6 are housewives. When are we going to address this? Where do we have a suicide prevention policy? in the states or at the center. So unless there's a push, because mental health has its implication on productivity, on family health, on physical health, and so many other things. I think if this is ignored completely by anybody and everybody, things are going to get worse for their own families, not for others. Those who live in high rises or in slums, those who live in chawls or in ghettos or in mohallas, it will affect anybody. Mental health is a very secular agenda. It's very secular. It affects everybody. I think it's high time we open our eyes till we destroy our own families and our own loved ones.
If I may add to what Dr. Shetty just said,
Yes,
I think, the one thing that really put me in a tailspin in the initial few days of the unfortunate demise of Sushant was, these messages coming up saying, hey, brother, you should have spoken to me. Hey, bhai, baat kyun nahi ki? We are right here. We are your friends. Why did you not speak? And I think that kind of got me thinking, because what if I wasn't here? What if I hadn't answered that phone call when Danish called me? It would have been too late for me to then go back and say, hey, why did you not call me? So I actually went to, a campaign. I can't remember the name, but I'll find out and I'll share it on the comments or whatever's best is the way ahead. But I actually did something called the suicide prevention, the first responder program. So they actually tell you how to deal with a situation like this. If you are face to face with it, how do you identify signs? How do you reach out to people without them having to reach out to you? What is it that you need to do when you suspect something like this? Because first of all, as Dr. Shetty said, we haven't normalized it for someone to walk up to you and have that conversation with you, let alone tell you that I'm at the end of it, I'm at the edge of the cliff, and then it is too late. Then there is no coming back from it. So I think it's really important that we start speaking about it, and each one of us who are sound, who are safe, who are in a position to help our own family members to actually step up our game so that we can be there for people who need us.
Yes.
Before we cry over spilt milk.
Yeah, so there are two very strong messages coming out of this show. Action that we can take within the, within the sort of circle of influence that we have in our own lives. One, read up about mental health, be available to the people around you, understand the risks and the behavior changes when it comes to mental health so that we can be better informed, talk about it more. Two, as far as the media channels are concerned, Sanjay Hegde put it really well. Switch off the push content where they're pushing content in your direction. Actually only pull content where you're actually going onto the internet. Choose journalists and organizations that you respect, that do good work. And you can tell, you're a smart person. I honestly believe that, the Indian audience is smart. You can instinctively tell when someone is lying to you. You can instinctively tell when someone is being biased. You just know. Switch it off. Take away your attention. Stop watching that content. Like Daniel said, go into your homes and tell your parents to stop watching that content. If they have smart TVs, install YouTube, follow 3 or 4 channels on YouTube so they can access it easily for them. Tell them that this is where you can get good content, where you can get better content. Support the journalists that you believe are doing a good job. Support organizations like News Laundry, for example. If you believe they're doing a good job, sample the content. It's only when you support the alternative that you will weaken the mainstream and you will discourage them from doing what they're doing right now. They've got a clean chit, like Sanjay Hegde said, the defamation cases take too long in India, so nobody actually files them, which means impunity. Do whatever you want. There is the News Broadcasters Association is barely doing anything at all. The Editors Guild is barely doing anything at all. So these guys are just running, amok. Nobody's stopping them. You stop them. You can stop them. You have to start now. That's the only way to do this. In the meantime, don't watch people yell at each other just before they go to bed. It's not good for you. And it's not good for anybody else. All right. We're going to come back with more of these conversations. Leave us feedback. Share the conversation with people you think might be interested in this. Like, share, subscribe to our channel as well. Thanks for watching. Thank you to my panel. Good night.